Hello everybody! I'm Mattmon the Frigid Gamer, and we're going to continue our Tinkers Construct tutorials here with the Longsword, a weapon that has some unique functions and gives you some pretty extreme mobility, even early game. So we're going to get right into things where we usually start off, and that's with building it. The Longsword is a highly versatile weapon that can be built at just the basic tool station, so you have access to it immediately after starting Tinker's Construct. It's built with nothing more than a simple sword blade, a handguard, and a tool rod. Very simple. You do not need the forge to do this, so you can get started on it ASAP. Some of the best parts I do have compiled here. If you're just starting off the game, starting off with a cactus sword blade is a really great idea, for two different reasons. First of all, it's easy to come by. You can grow it yourself to repair it. It does just as much damage as the iron variant does, doesn't require a smeltery, and it has that jagged modifier. What that jagged modifier will let you do is as the sword's durability decreases, its damage increases. Meaning that for early game, for a weapon that will have very little durability, this is very, very useful. But we're not building early game stuff here. Shiny or Mithril or Manelian is going to be your best and your highest damage. So, especially Mithril, getting Mithril early is definitely worth it for a sword blade. Silver is a really great mid-area material as it's very, very common, especially underground in Feed the Beast Infinity, or generally any pack that uses thermal expansion. But like I said, we're going to build a late game anyway. So your sword blade is where your damage comes from, but your handguard doesn't apply anything. It doesn't add durability, it doesn't add damage. So the only thing it's going to be useful for is that modifier in the center. And that brings us to pretty much two choices. You have the choice of either a paper handguard or an obsidian one. Obsidian will give you that reinforced 3, which means 30% of the time you will not use durability when hitting something with your sword. But because of the way that we're going to build our particular sword in this particular demonstration and tutorial, we're going to use paper. What writable does is writable gives you an extra modifier slot. We'll talk about the modifiers to use on the sword here in a little bit. Now the tool rod. The tool rod is where your modifier comes into play. You'll notice that the shiny sword blade here, if I look at it, has a durability of 1050. That means I can hit something 1050 times. It's pretty easy. These two tool rods have modifiers on them of 1.5 times and 2 times. So that number will get multiplied by the modifier here. I have both slimy tool rods. The reason is because slimy tool rods come in varying levels of difficulty to find. The green slimy tool rod can be very easy to find if you get lucky while digging underneath, and the blue slimy tool rod can be very easy to find if you are above ground and happen to find a floating island. Those are the only times they're going to be easy to find. You'll notice that the blue one is notably better at 2.5 as opposed to the normal 1.5, so we're going to use it. Alright, so to build the longsword, we go to our tool forge or our tool station, and the longsword will be in the list. You simply click it. Put your sword blade in that you want, your handguard, and your slimy tool rod. Bam. Let's give it a name. Let's give it a name. The cold paper cut. Perfect. So it's dense, it's slimy. What slimy is going to do is it has a chance of dropping slime balls whenever it hits something, and that reinforced 2 from the mithril sword blade. Pulled out. Boot. We have a sword. Wow. We have a sword. The sword does 9 damage. That's 4.5 hearts of damage. Or if you're sprinting and you hit with it, it deals 6.5. Or if you're doing your lunge. Because that reinforced 2, its effective durability is 2,600 uses. That is crazy. So, let's modify it. Because these stats are really awesome and all, and you actually even beat a diamond sword right now. But we can make it better. So to modify a tool, you can do so at the tool station by popping it in here and placing your modifiers here. There's a shortcut you can take. In a crafting station, you can put it in the center and surround it with your modifiers. Now some particularly useful modifiers are the ones I have listed here. A ball of moss is extremely useful on a ball of moss is extremely useful on weapons like this. because you aren't using it constantly, so its durability will replenish faster than what you're going to use it at. Makes sense. Now, you can also apply a hardened flux capacitor instead if you want to make the sword electric. You can do this. It's going to cost electricity to use instead of durability, but I find the auto repair is just more useful because you don't need to do anything to it. It's just going to replenish on its own. Let's modify that. The other majorly useful modifiers for this, of course, are lapis. Lapis will apply varying levels of luck to the sword. What luck does is it does the same thing as looting. For each level of luck that's on the sword, you have an extra chance of getting rare drops from enemies, as well as extras of the regular drops. So right now, you'll see that only 64 lapis is not that much, and I still have 2 modifiers remaining thanks to that paper modifier. The other major modifier to just adding to a longsword is, of course, quartz. What quartz does is for each level added to it, it adds 0.5 hearts of damage to the sword. So just by adding a single piece of quartz, though, not even a block, just a single piece, it will automatically up it by 0.5. So if you don't have a lot of quartz to spare, only spend 1 piece of quartz. Don't spend the whole 72 unless you happen to have that much on hand. Or else you're just wasting it. I'll apply the quartz now. Now, as you can see, we've added 72 quartz to this sword, giving it a normal attack of 6 hearts of damage, which is ludicrous. But we still have 1 modifier slot left. Now, if we want to add more quartz to it, we actually can, and bump that damage even higher. That's max. Yes, it is. There we go. So now, with 2 stacks of quartz on this, it's doing a whopping 7.5 hearts of damage normally, and its sprint attack does a whole 11 hearts. Now, it keeps on saying it's sprint damage. The longsword has some special functions that make it a little bit different than your normal sword. Now, the first thing that most people are going to notice is the fact that it can't block. All you do is you kind of do that. Woo, right? It doesn't really seem to be doing much aside from, doing a little bounce. If you attack something during that little bounce, you're going to be dealing 11 hearts of damage to it. That little bounce can be used in very interesting ways. One of those ways is that it adds the momentum to whatever you're doing. So if you're moving forward and you release, you notice you travel a lot farther. If you jump while you're moving and release, you travel a crap ton farther. Now, early game, this makes maneuvering caves infinitely more easy. Now, normally in Minecraft, you can only jump 1 block. With the longsword, oops. With the longsword, you can jump well over 2, well over 3 blocks. Oh, if you use it too many times in a row, though, it will give you diminishing returns, so you can't use it endlessly like that. Well over 4 blocks. Give it a second here to recharge. All the way up to 5 blocks. 5 is about the maximum you can do. But that's just for vertical gain. How about how far you can actually travel with this? Well, with the longsword's jump, you can use it to jump a 12-block gap. 12 blocks! Making this sword, even though it's incredibly useful in combat, incredibly useful just for mobility in general. Like, come on, 5 blocks. Dude. So here we are in the middle of the night, with a nice little horde of zombies following us around, and our trusty sword. Now, if I didn't want to fight them, I could just, leap away, get some very, very large quantities of distance around me, or I could completely script that jump, a little bit hard to line up the jump. As you can see, that jump, though, does one-hit these zombies. So longsword is a weapon that is very, very useful in this... Whoa, hello, I got one more. I missed! Are you freaking serious? So that concludes our little tutorial here on how to use the longsword. How to use it in combat, as you saw, was very, very easy. It is a little bit harder to line up the shots sometimes, especially when you're moving ridiculous numbers of blocks. But the effects at the end of the day, you just can't beat them. They're devastating, especially for a weapon that you can get immediately. As soon as you're starting Tinker's Construct, all you need is a couple of blocks of wood, and bam, you have a sword that lets you jump 5 blocks high, scale 5 blocks, jump 12 block ravines, and deal massive damage to zombies or enemies while you're even trying to escape. So thank you very much. This is Mattmon cutting out here. Deuces all.